Alrighty. Sorry about the delay. Welcome back to Free Read Fridays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fragath, and today we're going to be continuing Heavy Time by C.J. Cherryh, uh, which is pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. A fair warning for next week, and I'll remind of this at the end of the stream. I'm not going to be continuing this next week because it'll be coming on the day before Christmas Eve day, the 24th of December. So I've got some festive stuff, ha ha ha, ho ho ho, lined up um, for that Friday. Um, some short stories, I would say Christmas fables, but they are what they are. They're nominally holiday themed. So enjoy those when they come around, I guess. Or don't. But please do. They're fun. Alrighty, give me one sec to get less dry mouthy. So, previously on, uh, we step into the space capsule, mining vessel of Maury Bird and Ben Pollard at the very beginning of Heavy Time. And they are out chasing a distress signal. When they finally get there, which is a bit of a hullabaloo, um, or quite an operation, they find the distress signaled vessel, the vessel emitting the distress signal, which has one Dekker, Dekker, whose first name eludes me at this time. Paul Dekker, I want to say. Paul Dekker sounds right. Um, who is basically comatose, or unconscious, or barely with us, but still alive, barely. Um, wrapped in thermal blankets with like an oxygen array. And they muscle him onto their vessel. He has a bit of a freak out. Ben has a bit more of a freak out because he's like, I'm gonna get the money from salvaging this puppy. And Maury Bird, is like, wow, okay, you think you know somebody. Let's just try to help this dude, please. Thank you. And that basically catches us up. We are, let's see, I'm planning on reading the next two chapters, I think. So it is definitely going to be longer than last time. Last time was very short. This time is going to be rather more substantial. Um, like, I don't know, 30 pages or so, I think. Something like that. Or 30 more pages. Something, whatever. It's an amount. Um, and we are going to be learning more about the way these people live soon enough. If not this time, then next time. Alrighty, one sec. Chapter 2. The old man went away. Dekker heard him, or his partner, moving about. He heard the shower going, over the fan and the pump noises in the pipes beside his head. The ship was stable. That was a feeling he had thought he would never have again. He had dimmed the lights, cut off everything he could, and nursed it as far as he could until the cyclers went and the water fouled. And here he was, free of the stim suit, light as a breeze and vulnerable to the chill and the lack of G. He was off his head, he knew that. He scared the people who had rescued him, he knew that too, and he tried not to do it, but they scared him. They talked about owning his ship. They might kill him, might just let him die and tell the company, sorry, they hadn't been able to help that. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe he shouldn't care any longer. He was tired. He hurt, body and soul, and living took more work than he was sure he wanted to spend again on anything. He had no idea how long and how far a run was still in front of him getting home. He didn't think he could stand being treated like this all the way. Everything smelled of disinfectant, and sometimes it was his ship and sometimes it was theirs. But Cory never answered him wherever he was, and at times he knew she wouldn't. The old man drifted up into his sight again, put a straw in his mouth, and told him to drink. He did. It tasted of copper. The old man asked him what had happened to his partner. Then he remembered. How could he have forgotten? That she was out there, and that the ship was. He could see it coming. No! He cried, and winced when it hit. He knew it was going to hit. The collision alert was screaming. He yelled into the mic, "My partner's out there!" because it was the last thing he could think of to tell them. "Your partner's dead!" somebody yelled at him, and another voice, angry, yelled, "Shut up, damn it, Ben! You got no damn feelings. Give the guy a chance. God!" He was still alive, and he did not understand how he had survived. He hauled himself to the radio. He held on against the spin as long as he had strength. "Cory," he called on the suit-com frequency, over and over again, while the ship tumbled. Maybe she answered. His ears rang so he couldn't hear the fans or the pumps. But he kept calling her name, so she would know he was alive and looking for her, that he'd get her help, that he'd get help to her somehow. As soon as he could get the damned engines to fire. Or as soon as he could get a hold of base and make that ship out there answer him. Ben said, "We're due salvage rights, whether he's company or a free runner. No legal difference. It's right in the company rules. I'll show you." Bird said, carefully, because he wanted Ben to understand him, "We'll get compensated." "Maritime law, since—" "There's the law, and there's what's right, Ben." "Right is, we own that ship, Bird. He wasn't in control of it. That's what right says." Ben was short of breath. He was yelling. Bird said, calmly, sanely, "I'm trying to tell you, there's a lot of complications here. Let's just calm down. We've got weeks yet back to base, plenty of time to figure this out, and we'll talk about it. But we're not getting any damn where if we don't get our figures in and tell Mama what the hell. Whoops. And tell Mama to get us the hell home. Fast." "So how much more are you going to spend on this guy? A month's worth of food, medical supplies? We're going to bust our ass and risk our rigging for this guy?" Bird had no answer. He couldn't think of one to cut this off. "This is my money too, Bird. It's my money you're spending. Maybe you own this ship, maybe I'm just a part-share partner, but I have some say here." Ben flung a gesture toward Dekker, aft. "That guy's gonna live or he's gonna die. In either case, he's gonna do it before the month is up. Much as I want to be rid of him, there's no need busting our tails. We have double mast to move, Bird, and hell if I'm dumping the sling." "All right, we're not dumping the sling. Not ours, not his either, if we can avoid it." "And we're not putting any hard push on the rigging. There's no point in risking our necks, or putting wear on the pins and the lines. We don't call this a life and death. We can't cut that much time off. And hell if I want to meet a rock the way this guy did." It made better sense than a lot else Ben had been saying. Bird took that for hopeful and nodded. I'll go with you on that. A hard push could do more harm than good for him, too. Guy's gonna die anyway. He's not going to die, Bird said. For God's sake, just shut up. He can hear you. So if he doesn't, a month gets him well, and we pull into station and he looks healthy, and he says, sure, he was managing that ship just fine. Just let it alone, Ben. I'm gonna get pictures. Get your pictures. Bird shook his head, wishing he could say no, wishing he had some way to reason with Ben. But if getting a vid record would make Ben happier, God, let him have the pictures. We have the condition of that ship out there. We have the log records over there. Charts! Ben exclaimed, as if that was a new idea. We're not touching that log. No way. That part of the law I know. I'm not talking about that. Look, I got an idea. An idea was welcome. Bird watched doubtfully as Ben punched up the zone schema, pointed on the screen to the driver ship and its fire path to the well, the same thing that scared them even to contemplate. That's got a medic. That's got a friggin' company captain in charge. We just ask Mama to boost us over there just across the line, and they can take official possession. Damn right they would. The company doesn't run a charity. It's an R1 ship. They're obligated to take him. They have no choice. The law says a driver is a base. They can log us right there for a find if we bring it in. And this is a find, isn't it? Same as a rock. We can turn it in, money in the bank, and we can apply to do some cleanup along with its tenders for the rest of our run. That's damn good money. Sure money. And we got the best excuse going. Ben, that's a driver captain you're talking about. They don't have to do anything. You want him to tell us we've still got to turn him around and take this guy into base, maybe clean to R1? If he takes it in his head, he can do that. You want him to tell us he'll hold 84 Zebra for us, and then contest his fees in court when he shows up 3 years from now with one hell of a haulage charge? We got this run to pay for. We got serious questions to answer because there's a whole lot that's not right about this, and I'm not taking my chances with any court of inquiry back at base with all the evidence stuck out on a driver that for all we know isn't coming in for 3 or 4 more years. If you want to talk law, now let's be practical. Ben's mouth shut. A driver does any damn thing it wants to. 3 years dockage charges, supposing they're on the start of their run. 3 years haulage. You want to try to pry a claim away from the company then? Not mentioning the cost of getting it there. We're short as is. You want to hear them say ferry it back ourselves anyway? Twice the distance? Or get us drafted to its tender crew on a permanent basis? You know what they charge a free runner for fuel? Ben looked very sober during all of this. Ben bit his lip. So that's out. You know, we could just sort of knock that fellow on the head, solve everybody's problem. Ben, who was scared to death of looking at a body. Yeah, sure, Bird said. And from aft, what time is it? What's the time? Ben glanced up. Now what does he want? Bird checked his watch. 23:10, he shouted back. I want my watch. God, Ben muttered, shaking his head. We have 4 weeks of this guy. I want my watch! Ben yelled, shut up, damn it, you're not keeping appointments anyway. Patience, Bird said, but Ben shoved off in Dekker's direction. Bird sailed after, arrived as Dekker said quietly, I need my watch. Ben said, you don't need your watch. You're not going anywhere. It's 23 damn 10 in my sleep, mister, so you're using our air and our fuel and our time already, so shut up. Ben, just take it easy. I'll shut him up with a wrench. Ben. All right. Ben took off again. Dekker said, I can't see my watch. Bird floated over where he could read the time on Dekker's watch. 2014. You're about 3 hours slow.
No.
That's what it says.
What day is it?
May 20.
You're lying to me.
Bird, Ben said ominously, and came drifting up again to reach for Deckard, but Bird grabbed him. I can't take 4 weeks of that, Bird. I swear to you, this guy's already on credit with me already. Give me a little slack, will ya? Shut it down. Shut it up. Hear me? I've dealt with crazies, Ben muttered. I've seen enough of them. Fine, fine. We get this guy out of a tumble. He's been whacked about the head. He's a little shook. Ben, do you think you wouldn't be if you'd been through what he has? Ben stared at him, jaw clamped, grievous offense in every line of his face. Ben was in the middle of his night. That was so. Ben was tired, and Ben had been spooked, and Ben didn't understand weakness in anybody else. Serious personality flaw, Bird thought. Dangerous personality flaw. He watched Ben go back to work without a word. Good partner in some ways. Damned efficient. Good with rocks. But different. Belter born, for one thing, never talked about his relatives. Brought up by the corporation, for the corporation. Talk to Ben about Shakespeare, Ben'd say, what shift does he work? Say, I come from Colorado, Ben'd say, is that a city? But Ben didn't really know what a city was. You couldn't figure how Ben read that word. Say, I went up to Denver for the weekend, and Ben'd look at you funny, because weekend was another thing that didn't translate. Ben wouldn't ask either, because Ben didn't really want to know. He couldn't spend it, and he wasn't going there, and he never would, and that was the limit of Ben's interest. Ask Ben about spectral analysis or the assay and provenance of a given chunk of rock, and he'd do a 30-minute monologue. Damn weird values in Belt kids' mindsets. Sometimes Bird wondered. Right now, he didn't want to know. Right now, he was thinking that he might not want Ben with him next trip. Ben was a fine geologist, a reliable hold her steady kind of pilot, and honest in his own way. But he had some scary dark spots, too. Maybe years could teach Ben what a city was, but God only knew if you could teach Ben how to live in one. Bird was seriously pissed. Ben had that much figured, and that made him mad, and it made him nervous. He approved of Bird, generally. Bird knew his business. Bird had spent 30 years in the belt, doing things the hard way, and Ben had had it figured from the time he was 14 that you never got anywhere working for the company if you weren't in the executive track or if you weren't a senior pilot. He had never had the connections for the one, and he hadn't the reflexes for the other, so free running was the choice. Where he was only working only for himself, and where what you knew made the difference. He had come out of the Institute with a basic pilot's license and the damn all latest theory, had the numbers and the knowledge and everything it took. The company hadn't been happy to see an Institute lad go off free running instead of slaving in its offices or working numbers for some company minor, and most Institute brats wouldn't have had the nerve to do what he'd done skimp and save and live in the debtor barracks, and then bet every last dollar on a free runner's outfitting. Most kids who went through the Institute didn't have the discipline, didn't refrain from the extra food and the entertainment and the posh quarters you could opt for. They didn't even get out of the Institute undebted. Thank God for Mama's insurance. And even granted they did all that, most wouldn't have had the practical sense to know, if they did decide to go mining and not take a job key pushing in some office, that the game was not to sign up with some shiny new company pilot in Corporab who had the perks out to here. Hell no. The smart thing was to hunt the records for the old independent who had made ends meet for 30 years, lean times and otherwise. Namely, Morris Bird. Free running was the only wide gamble left in the belt, and free runners, being from what they were, didn't have the advantage of expert, up-to-date knowledge from the Institute, plus the assay office. But with Maury Bird's 30 years of running the belt, his old charted pieces were bigger than you got nowadays, distributed all along the orbital track, and he got chart fees on those every month. The company didn't argue with his requests to tag, and those old charted pieces kept coming round again, in the way of rocks that looped the sun fast and slow. Sometimes those 24 and 12-year-old pieces might have been perturbed, and if somebody tried to argue about the claim, your numbers had to be solid after all those years. Besides which, to find the good chaff that might remain to be found, you had to have more than guesswork. That was the pitch he had to offer, along with 20K interest free to finance some equipment Bird badly needed. That was why Bird should take a greenie for a numbers man in a time when experienced miners went begging. Company training, the science and the math and the complete belt charts that Assay got to see. And they had done damned well as a team. Damned well, till they'd got one of those absolutely miserable draws some Mama sometimes handed you. A sector where there just wasn't much left to find but a handful of company-directed tags on some company-owned rocks. So right now, they were in a financial slump. Bird was under a strain, and Bird had odd touchy spots Ben never had been able to figure, all of which this Dekker had evidently hit on with his crazy behavior and his pretty boy looks. Dekker was up there in their sleeping nook mumbling about losing his partner. Damn careless of him. And now Bird was mad at him, acting as if it was his fault the guy was alive and the find that might have been their big break turned out complicated. Maybe, he thought, Bird did want that ship as much as he did. Maybe Bird was equally upset that this fellow was alive, Bird having this ethic about helping people. Bird might well be confused about what he was feeling. Dangerous attitude to spread around, Ben thought, this charity business. And unfair, when Bird even thought about foregoing that ship for somebody who owed him, and not the other way around, at his own partner's expense. It was a way for Bird to get had, and a man as free-handed as Bird was needed. What? Oh, and a man as free-handed as Bird was needed help from a partner with a lasting reason to keep him in one piece. Bird, he called out from the workstation, I got your prelim calc. No complications but that driver and our mass. Bird came over to him. Bird said he'd finish it up and call Mama. Bird touched him on the shoulder in a confusingly friendly way and said, Get some sleep. Ben said, because he thought it might make Bird happier, I'm wired. At the bottom of his motives was the thought that a little time next to Dekker's constant mumbling about Cory and his watch might make Bird a little less charitable to strangers. But Bird said, You're the one who needs it most. What's that supposed to mean? It means what it means. You're tired. You've worked your ass off. Get some rest. I don't think I'll sleep right off. That guy makes me nervous. This whole situation makes me nervous. Bad day. Hard day. He decided Bird was being sane again. He was relieved. He said, we might just ought to get a statement out of this guy. Besides pictures. I'm going to get a tape of this whole damn what time is it routine. Show what we got to cope with. Might just prove our case. Bird shook his head. Bird, for God's sake. Ben, he said firmly. Ben did not understand. He flatly did not understand. Just go easy on him, Bird said. So what's he to us? A human being. That's no damn recommendation, Ben muttered. But it was definitely a mistake to argue with Bird in his present mood. Bird owned the ship. Ben shook his head. I'll just get the pictures. You don't understand, do you? Understand what? What if it was you out there? I wouldn't be in that damn mess, Bird. You wouldn't be. You're that sure? I'm sure. Ben, you mind my asking, whatever happened to your folks? What's that got to do with it? Did they ever make a mistake? My mama wasn't the pilot. That ship's not going to be. Whoops. That ship's not going to be book mass with that tank rupture. Center of mass is going to be off too. Need to do a test burn a little while, all right? I don't want to leave anything to guesswork. Yeah, fine. Nothing rough. Remember we have a passenger. Ben frowned at him and kept his mouth shut. Bird said, pulling closer. I got to tell you, Ben, right up front, we're not robbing this poor sod. He's got enough troubles. Hear me? Don't you even be thinking about it. It's not robbing. It's perfectly legal. It's your rights, Bird, same as he has his. The same as he'd take his if things were the other way around. That's the way the system is set up to work. There's rights, and there's what is right. He's not your friend. He's not even anybody's friend, you know. Bert, for God's sake, you got a major break here. Breaks like this don't just fall into your lap, and they're nothing if you don't make them work for you. That's why there's laws, to even it up so you can work with people the way they are, Bird, not the way you want them to be. You still have to look in mirrors. What's mirrors to do with anything? If we do anything, we do the expenses. Expenses, hell! We're due haulage, medical stuff, chem kit, and a fat salvage fee at minimum. We're due that whole damn ship is what we're due, Bird. It won't work. Hell if it won't work, Bird. I'll show it to you in the code. You want me to show it to you in the code? Bird looked out. Bird looked put out with him. Bird said, with a sigh, I know the rules. Bird had him completely puzzled. He took a chance, asked, Bird, have I done something wrong? No, just give me warning on that burn. I'm going to shoot some antibiotics into our passenger, get him a little more comfortable. Ben said, vexed, figuring to argue it later. Better keep a running tab on that stuff if that's the way you're playing it. There isn't any damn tab, Ben. Quit thinking like a computer. The guy can have kidney and liver damage. He can have fractures. He can be concussed. You can calc a nice gentle burn while you're at it. We're not doing any sudden moves with him. All right, fine. Slow and easy. Ben tapped the stylus at the keys, with temper boiling up in him as Bird left. Downright hurt when it came to it. He tapped it several times on the side of the board, shoved away from the toehold, and caught up with Bird's retreat. Bird, damn it, what in hell have I done? Bird looked at him as if he were adding things in his head. Maybe, Ben thought, maybe Bird just didn't like to be argued with. Or maybe it was that pretty boy face of Dekker's. Dekker was a type he thoroughly detested, because for some people there didn't need to be any sane reason to do them favors. Didn't matter they were dumb as shit or that they'd cut your throat for their advantage. People believed them because they looked good and they talked smooth. It suddenly dawned on him that Bird was acting soft-headed about this guy with no good reason, and he decided maybe Bird taking care of Dekker himself wasn't a good idea at all. He said quickly, quietly, "If it's the bank I'm worried about. And this guy's intentions. He's not in his right zone. He's a long way from it. We don't know him. Maybe he was thrown here. Maybe he wasn't. We don't know what he is. He could be some drop off from the rebels. There aren't any jackers, Ben, and he isn't any rebel. What's he going to spy on? A ship you can see from deep out with any decent optics? You've heard too many stories. All right, he's one of the good guys. You want him tucked in safe and sound, you want a dose of broad spectrum stuff and maybe some vitamins in him, I'll take care of it. You set up the burn. You're already running on it. I said I'll take care of him. Ben kited off toward the med cabinet, and Bird's first thought was, so maybe I talked some human sense into him. And then, cynically, maybe at least he figures he's precarious with me right now, and covering his ass is all he's doing. You don't change a man that fast. Then he saw Ben fill a hypo, and thought, God, he wouldn't. Bird kicked off from the touch strip and sailed up beside Ben. I'll do it. I'll take care of it. Bird snatched at the bottle. It floated free. It turned label side toward him as he caught it, and it was antibiotic Ben had been loading. Ben scowled at him. You're acting crazy, Bird. You're acting seriously crazy, you know that? I'll handle it, Bird said. Just wait on that burn a few minutes. Ben scowled at him, shoved off from the cabinet, and sailed backward toward the workstation. Offended, Bird thought, with a twinge of irritation and of conscience at once. Not sure what Ben really had intended. Ben had no patience or sympathy for Dekker or anyone else. So he'd thought. Or was it just plain jealousy Ben was showing? Ben belted back in at his keyboard. Ben was not looking at him, pointedly not looking at him. Bird kicked off to the side, drifted up to Dekker. Dekker looked to be asleep. Bird hoped that was all. At least he'd given up asking what time it was. Bird popped him on the arm with the back of one hand. Dekker waked with a start and an outcry. Poorly backed, Bird said, showing him the needle. You got any allergies? Dekker shook his head, muzzily. Bird gave him the shot, snagged the citrusol pack out of the pipes where the air currents had sent it, uncapped the stem and put it in Dekker's mouth. Dekker took a sip or two, turned his head. That's all. We're going to do a test burn. After that, we'll be doing a 140, going to catch a beam home. Has to be our base, understand, unless we get other instructions. We're out of R2. Dekker looked at him hazily. No, no hospital. 79, 709, 12. That's where we were. We had a find. Big find. Big find. I'll sign it to you. Just go there. Pick my partner up. Your partner was outside when the accident happened? Dekker nodded. What happened? Catch a rock? It happened. Usually to new crews. Another nod. Dekker's eyes were having trouble tracking. Kilometer wide. Iron content. Free-running miners didn't find nickel-iron rocks that big. Rocks that big had been mapped by optics. Those rocks all had long-standing numbers. They belonged to the company, and if they were rich, they got drivers assigned to them, and they got chewed in pieces, and they streamed to the recovery zone at the well by bucket loads. But Bird didn't argue that point. Dekker didn't seem highly reasonable at the moment, and he only said, "A whole K wide. You're sure of that?" It's the truth, Dekker said. We got a tag on it. Uncharted rock. You can have it if you'll go back there and find her. Cory's a her. Cory. Yes. He was going out again. God, go back. Go back there. Listen to me. Anything you want. You want another sip? Bird asked, but Dekker was out again. Gone. Bird shoved off and arrowed down to grab a handhold by Ben's workstation, but Ben said, "I'm already ahead of you. Man said 79, 709, 12. No signal in that direction but the driver." Nothing but the driver, Bird thought. God. Hear any tag? Ben shook his head. Bird bit his lip, wondering. Wondering, damn it, how long that particular driver had been there. A while, damned sure. But Mama only told you what you needed. You could work out the rest from what you could gather with your own ears and your radar, but who wanted to? Who, in a question about a company tag and a private claim, wanted to? Ben said in a low voice, "Do you suppose that fool tried to skim the company on a rock that size?" Bird thought, "I want out of here." But what he argued to Ben was, "We just don't ask. We don't know anything, and we sure as hell aren't getting in their way. Whatever claim's out there already has a driver attached." Makes other claims kind of moot, doesn't it? Don't even ask. Company prerogatives, secret company codes, and direct accesses. Company ships could talk back and forth at will. Bet your life they could. And count that driver ship was armed, if you counted a kilometer-long mass driver as a lethal weapon, and Bird personally did. You didn't want to argue right of way or ownership with a driver captain. They were Aztecs to the core, and they were a breed next to God. Ben said, "Told you we should have left this guy on the other side of the rock. It's still not too late." "Cut the jokes. It wasn't funny the first time." "Bird, there's a hell of a lot more than he's telling. Big find, hell. They were skimming a company claim." "We don't know that." "Well, that's all I want to know. Suddenly, I'm damn glad we haven't been talking to that driver. I don't like this. Damn, I don't." "I don't know anything. You don't know anything. We didn't look at that log. Thank God. Let's just get us out of here." "We could offer to give evidence." "We don't know what we're swearing to. We don't know what happened." "We could look in that log." "Sure, a skimmer's gonna log his moves. What's he gonna write? 10:25, and we just blew a chip off a 1K rock. If we touch that panel over there, we'll leave a record of that access, and maybe that's not a good idea. Do I spell it out? Don't be a fool." "I can fix that log. I think I can bypass that access record if you really want to know." "Don't depend on it. Think isn't good enough. No, we don't run that risk. Best claim we've got is that we haven't seen those records and we don't know a thing. We don't have a problem if we just keep clean. No shady stuff. Nothing. Clean, Ben." "Knock that guy in the head," Ben muttered. "Be sure there's no questions. Then there's no problem." God, he thought, is that what they teach this generation? The ship jolted. Dekker yelled aloud, struggling to get free. Someone, a familiar voice now, shouted at him to shut up. Another, gentler, said, "That was just getting in position, Dekker. Take it easy." He had another blank spot then, woke up with the nightmare feeling of increasing G, not knowing where it was going to stop, or what had started it. Something pressed into his back, and he thought, "God, we're spinning!" "Cory!" he yelled.
Shut up, damn it!
"Dekker!" This came gently then, with a touch at his shoulder. A smell of something cooked. Free fall. He blinked and looked at the gray-haired man, who let a foil packet of something drift near his face. "We've done our position," the man said to him. He couldn't remember the name, and then did. Bird. Bird was the good one. Bird was the one who didn't want to kill him. "We're going to catch our beam tomorrow, and we're going home. Seems Mama thinks we're in no hurry or something, damn her. I'll let you loose if you can keep awake." Another pat on the shoulder. "I know you've been off your head a little."
What time is it?
"Shush," Bird said. "Don't go asking that."
I want to know.
Bird put a hand on his mouth. "Don't do that," Bird said, looking him in the eyes. "Don't do that, son. You don't need to know. You really don't need to know. Your partner's just lost, that's all. A long time ago. There's nothing anybody can do for her." He didn't want to believe that. He didn't want to wake up again, but Bird caught the packet drifting in front of his face and held the tube in his mouth, insisting. He took a little. It was warm. It was soup. It was salty as hell. He turned his head away, and Bird let it go, leaving a tiny planetesimal of soup cooling in the air, drifting away with the current. Bird brushed at it, caught it in his hand, wiped it on his sleeve. Blood everywhere, shining dark drops. Everything was stable, clean and quiet. Nothing had ever gone wrong here. Nothing had ever been wrong. He kept his eyes open for fear of the dark behind them, and tried another sip of what Bird was offering him, while the first was hitting his stomach with an effect he was not yet sure of. "Why am I here?" he asked himself. "What is this place? This isn't my ship. What am I doing out here?" Maybe he asked out loud. He didn't keep track of things. "To refinery too," Bird told him. He shook his head. He got a breath and thought, Cory's still in the ship. They've left Cory back in the ship. He reminded himself. He could do it now with only a cold, strange calm. No, Cory's dead. Not that he could remember. He kept telling himself that over and over, but he could not remember. She was still there. She was wondering what had happened to him. She was trusting him to do the right thing, the smart thing. She was waiting for him to pick her up. The dark-headed one, the young one, Ben, rose into his vision, carrying a length of thin cable and a Davies clip. Ben hung in front of his face and reached behind his neck with the cable. "Hell!" he yelled, and used a knee, but Ben grabbed a handful of his coveralls, and it missed his target. Oh shit, he thought then, looking Ben in the face. He thought Ben would kill him. Bird said, from the other side, "Easy, son. It's temporary. Hold still." He had thought Bird was all right, but Bird held him still, and Ben got the cable around his neck. The clip clicked. "There," Ben said. "You can reach the necessaries, reach anything in this ship but the buttons. And you don't really want those, do you?" He stared eye to eye at Ben and wondered if Ben was waiting to kill him while Bird was asleep. He remembered hearing them talk. He wondered whether Ben was going to hit him right now. "You understand me?" Ben asked. He nodded, scared, and likewise clear-headed in a tight-focused, adrenaline-edged way. He stayed very still while Ben started untaping his left wrist from the pipe. He didn't think either ahead or backward. It was just himself and Ben, and the old man saying, holding tightly to his shoulder, "I apologize. I sincerely apologize about this, son. But we can't have you wandering around off your head. Ben's not a bad guy. He really isn't." He remembered what he'd overheard. He had thought Bird wanted to keep him alive, and now he wasn't sure either one of them was sane. Ben freed his left arm. Bird untied the right. Moving both at once hurt his chest, hurt his back, hurt everything so much his eyes teared. Ben went away forward. Bird stayed behind, put a hand on his shoulder.
No difference between our config and yours. The standard rig, by what I saw. Anything you can reach, you can use. Wouldn't use the spinner with that cable attached, understand, but you got G while we're tumbling. God knows, probably more than enough. Your stim suit's clean, but you'd as glad be free of it in a day or so, wouldn't you? You're probably sore as hell. Right? Just don't try to use the shower. Cable won't let it seal. We'll have water everywhere. Everything else you got free run of. Copy that?
Yeah. Bird gathered up the trailing cable, put it in his hand, closed his fist on it.
When you're moving about the cabin, do kind of keep a grip on that. We don't want you hurt. Here? We don't want that cable to pull you up short. We're not going to do a burn without we warn you, but all the same, you just keep a hand to that. Hold on to it.
Just too many things had happened to him. He could not figure what his situation was, or what they wanted. He shoved off, drifted away from the bulkhead to get the packet of soup that had come adrift. Breaking with his arm against a pipe was almost more than he could do. He let go the cable, confused, and banged his head. Someone caught his foot and pulled, gently. It turned him as he came down, and he saw Bird with a packet of soup in his own hands.
There's solid food, Bird said, when you can handle it. Use anything from the galley you need. You got pretty dehydrated.
He hated all this past tense, implying a major piece of time he couldn't remember. From moment to moment he told himself Cory was gone, and every time he did that he felt a sense of panic. He brushed a touchpad with his foot, stopped, drank a sip, and watched Bird sip from his own packet. He kept thinking, they're lying to me. They're not taking me home. Finally, he asked Bird, "What driver is it out there?"
What about a driver?
"You were talking about a driver. What driver were you talking about?" Ben yelled up from below.
Don't tell him a damn thing, Bird. He hasn't earned it.
He looked from Ben down at the workstation up to Bird, resting by the bulkhead.
Ben's excitable, Bird said. Just have your breakfast, or supper, as may be.
But Ben was drifting up to them. Ben braked with the shove of a hand against the conduits.
I'd like to know, Ben said, what you've got to pay for this trip. Eat our food, breathe our air, take up our time and our fuel. We're aborting a run for you. We just got effing started, and we're heading back to base, damn near zeroed on your account, mister. You got any assets to pay for this, or just debts?
"We have money," he said, and then knew he shouldn't have said that to these people. He said, desperately catching up the thread of his thought. He hoped he hadn't lost anything between. "So what driver is it?" Ben said,
How much money?
Ben,
Bird said. He said carefully, "I want you to call that driver and ask about my partner."
Ask what about your partner? Ben asked.
"Ask if they—" He stuttered on the thought. He never stuttered, and still he could not get it out. "If they picked her up."
So why should they? What were you doing here, poaching in another refinery zone?
"We weren't." "Damn it, it was."
What do you mean, it was?"
Ben,
Bird said, and then, looking at him,
forget he asked.
he didn't understand. He was so weak he couldn't track what they were saying from moment to moment, and hostile questions, zero-G, and unaccustomed food were all one confusion of balance and orientation. There was a constant buzz in his head that rose and fell like the fan sounds. From moment to moment he knew Cory was alive, and from moment to moment he thought about the time and wanted to check his watch to be sure. But that was crazy. He began to know it was.
The only hope Cory had now was that driver ship. Maybe it had picked her up. Maybe it had. He's not telling the story he started with, Ben said. Man's lying somewhere. A collision with a rock, he said. An explosion took one whole damn tank out. The other one's got a bash you could park a skimmer in. You want to see the videotape, man? I can show you the tape. Didn't hit a rock, he said, shaking his head. He had no idea where this was going. He had no idea what they were accusing him of, whether this was going on record or what they wanted from him. Why would it explode? The driver crippled us. Clipped us. Whoops. The driver clipped us. Facing away from the well? Whose zone were you in? R1. Driver, hell. You ran it into a rock, didn't you? Just plain ran it onto a rock. No.
Ben, Bird said, take it easy. This guy's confused.
Take it easy. Some people with trouble deserve it, you know.
We don't know anything, Bird said. His memory isn't going to be all that good with what he's been through.
Looks healthy enough. Looks damn well healthy enough on our air and our food. Looks like he's making real good progress. Ben talked about claiming the ship. He recollected that. They were after the ship, and they claimed they were taking him to R2, not home. Now they were talking about other depths. They talked as if they wanted to put him to work for them. He had heard about Nuri. It had happened before in the belt. Guys with all sorts of kinks went out in ships, and when they were ready to come into base, they might not want to take the evidence with them. God, he thought, and looked off toward nowhere. The only thing in the vicinity was that driver ship. If they had never reported finding Cory. The instruments. Something coming at him over the horizon. Explosion like a fist hit them. G-force. He reached after the fire controls. No power. Nothing. Ben left him. Bird left him. He saw Bird talking with Ben, holding on to Ben's arm. He couldn't make out what they were saying. Then Ben shouted, "We own that ship!" And Bird,
Just shut it down, Ben! Shut it down for God's sake, Ben!
They started arguing again, yelling at each other about money, about what they were spending on him, and Bird took his part, saying over and over again,
It's not your damn decision, Ben!
He watched, turning so he could see, phasing in and out of clear awareness, the fan sound going in his ears, the soup he had drunk lying queasy on his stomach. He was afraid at one point Ben was going to hit the old man, and that Ben was going to end up in control of the ship. The argument broke up. He grayed out a while. He came to with something near him and looked into a cyclopic glass lens, a camera pointed at his face. Ben's face behind it. Ben's face behind it. That scared him. He stared back, wondering whether Ben had a real kink or whether Ben was just a hobbyist. He was afraid to object. He just stared back and tried not to throw up. Then Ben cut the camera off and said, "Got you, you son of a bitch!" He drifted off. He thought, this guy's crazy. He's absolutely crazy. Ben wanted his ship. Ben wanted him dead. He had this cable around his neck, and Ben had put that there. He was afraid to sleep after that, afraid Ben was going to do something stranger still, and adrenaline kept him focused for a while. But things started going away from him again. He was back in the dark with the tumbling and the pressure building in his head, and then he was back again with that lens in his face, and Ben going crazier and crazier. He had no idea how long those times were, or whether he had dreamed the business with the camera. When he looked, Bird was sleeping in a makeshift net rigged down toward the bow, and Ben was back at the workstation keyboard, as if he had never moved, never had done anything in the least odd. He watched Ben for a while, wondering if he had hallucinated, wondering if it was safe to move with Bird asleep, because he was beginning to feel an acute need of going down to the head, and he was scared to do anything that Ben might conceivably object to. Finally, he shoved off very slowly and drifted down feet first toward the shower/toilet. Ben looked around at him. He touched the other wall and caught the shower door, and Ben seemed not to care. Don't use the shower. He remembered that. He kept the cable in his left hand the way Bird had said, but for a space he lost track of where he was again. Then he was inside the shower where the toilet was, finishing his business. He thought for a panicked moment. They're lying. This is our ship all along. It was even the same ribbed pattern on the green shower wall. He could feel it when he touched it, real as anything he knew. He thought, Cory can't be dead. She isn't dead. There isn't any other ship. But there was the cable snaking out the door. There was the clip that wouldn't come off. He tried to brace himself with his feet and his shoulders while he worked. He pulled the clip cover back to squeeze the jaws with his bare fingers, but he could get no leverage on it, and all the while Cory was out there with no way to get back. He looked at his watch. It said 0638. It said March 12. He thought, the damn watch is wrong. It can't be March 12. I'm back where I started. Cory's going to die. Oh, God! The clip cover slipped, and he pinched his finger, bit his lip against the pain, and thought, I've got to get rid of this. Got to get a hold of that ship. Get the radio. He looked around him for leverage, anything that could double for pliers and put a pinch on the jaws with the clip cover retracted. He tried the soap dispenser, pried the small panel up, worked himself around upside down with his foot braced against the wall, pulled the spring cover back from the jaws with the fingers of his left hand, and held the pressure point under the metal edge of the panel with the leverage of his right hand, pushing the panel edge down on the clip hard as he could, trying not to let it slip. Chapter 3 Came a thump from the shower, and Ben thought to himself, he's been in there a long time. He slipped his seat belt off, shoved off in that direction, and snatched a handhold at the shower corner, catching a hazy image of Dekker upside down and crosswise in the stall. What in hell? He wondered. He flung the door back, could make no sense at first of what Dekker was doing. Then he saw the bloody fingerprints on the locker door, the whole angle of Dekker's neck and arm forcing the soap dispenser panel shut on a clip. Dekker let it go of a sudden. The panel banged, and Dekker came off the wall at him, grappling for a hold, trying, he realized in panic, to get the cable looped around his throat. He yelled, flailed out, and caught the cable, their tumble winding them both into the cable Dekker was trying to get around his neck, and in sheer panic he hit him, hauled up on the cable and kept hitting him, hard as he could. "Ben!" Bird yelled. He half heard it. He just kept pounding away, his fist gone numb, his breath so choked he had no idea whether he was snagged in the cable or not. Bird grabbed his arm, yelling, "You're gonna kill him! Ben, damn it, stop!" He realized then that Dekker was no longer fighting. Bird pried him out of his grip, Dekker floating loose and limp. Bird shook at him again, said, "God, have you lost your mind?" Sympathy for a damned lunatic. No thanks for stopping Dekker from killing them. He was shaking from the scare Dekker had given him. He hurt from Dekker's hitting him, and Bird took Dekker's part. That son of a bitch tried to pry the clip loose, he said, and shook free of Bird's grip, grabbed Dekker, hauled him up again where the pipes and the conduits were, and fumbled the roll of tape out of his hip pocket. Dekker was still limp as he started wrapping his wrist to a cold water pipe, but he hurried, afraid he would come to.
Stop it!
Bird cried, and came up and shoved him away. His hand hurt. Bird was taking the lunatic's part. So he went down and got into the stores and dispensed himself a beer. He didn't speak to Bird. He didn't trust himself to say anything at the moment. His jaw was sore. A tooth felt loose. His lip was cut. He had never had a fight in school, and it had not been his idea to have one this late in his life, except a guy wanted to kill him. He yelled up at Bird, "Don't you let that son of a bitch loose! Don't you do it, Bird!" He took a gulp of beer, still shaking, his legs and arms jerking spasmodically, his breath so erratic he had trouble drinking. Not scared, mad, that was all. Damned mad. The guy tried to kill him, and Bird shoved him off and started making sympathetic noises at the guy that had meant to do them both in. Bird owned the ship. Bird gave the orders. And Bird thought they could trust this son of a bitch.
Toss me up a cold pack!
Bird yelled down. He did that. He opened up medical and sent it up to Bird, and Bird didn't even look at him. Bird cut the penlight. At least Dekker's pupils were the same size, and they both reacted, which was about all he knew to look for. Dekker was bleeding from the nose in little droplets. He mopped the air with his handkerchief, to keep it out of the filters, wiped Dekker's chin, then caught the cold pack and applied it to Dekker's face and the back of his neck. Dekker began to show signs of life, confused, struggling with the tape for a moment before he reached over with his free hand and started tearing at it. Bird grabbed that hand, restrained it, saying, so only Dekker could hear,
"Easy, easy. Just stay quiet. It's all right. Just take it easy. You're not doing any good that way. Cut it out, here."
Dekker was breathing hard, staring at him or through him. He had no idea. Dekker wanted loose. Couldn't fault him for that. Couldn't be sure he was sane, either. And God only knew what was going on with Ben. Dekker gave a jerk at the wrist he was holding.
Uh-uh, he said. Just stay still. You leave that tape alone for a while. Here? Just let it be.
Dekker said, "Liar."
Yeah, right.
You went to sleep, and things were halfway under control, and you woke up with two guys trying to kill each other, and it wasn't highly likely to make sense.
You're bleeding into our filters. Just stay still. Damn!
As Dekker choked and sneezed beads of blood. He snagged them with the handkerchief, one-handed, pressed it against Dekker's face.
I don't know what you did, son. Did you do something to piss Ben off?
Dekker only shook his head. Denial. Refusal. He had no idea. Dekker blew blood into the handkerchief, gasped a bubbly breath, and mumbled, "Cory, Cory, call Cory."
Not likely she's answering.
He shoved Dekker's hand at his face.
Hold that.
He snagged the ice pack that was coming back after its impact with the wall, and gave Dekker that, too.
Just keep the cold on it. If you're going to bleed, bleed into the handkerchief, all right? Don't blow at it. Just let it be.
Dekker looked at whoops. Dekker looked at him past the bloody handkerchief and the cold pack.
Sane for a moment, maybe. Or just too miserable and too short of breath to be crazy for a while. He collected himself, and his headache, and the remnant of his patience shoved off and drifted down to Ben. Ben intended to keep his back to him, it seemed. So he turned, touched a cabinet, and changed course. He got used to reading faces upside down or sideways. Ben's was sour, upset, and Ben was trying not to notice being stared at, only drinking his beer and trying to be somewhere else.
I got a problem, he said. Ben,
We both got a problem, Ben said shortly, as if he was not going to say much else. But Ben said then, the guy was trying to kill us. He damn near had that clip undone with a panel edge for a pliers. What was he gonna do then, huh, Bird? You reckon that?
God only. Just go easy. We got a long way back.
Go easy. Ben scowled. Listen, I saved and I did without all my life to get that 20K. You understand? Nobody ever handed me a break. Nobody ever gave me a damn thing. And here we have the best break anybody could look for.
It doesn't say we own that ship. It doesn't.
God, Bird.
We'll be all right.
He could understand Ben's panic on that level. The 20K was hard come by, all right. So was everything.
We won't go under.
Go under? You're old enough to know better, Bird. I put my whole life savings into this operation.
So have I,
He said shortly, and hauled himself down and turned so he could see Ben's face rightwise up.
30+ years worth. And listen to me. You don't go hitting the guy again. He's had enough knocks to the head.
So who is he? Who is he that you owe him a damn thing, Bird? Is there something about this guy I don't know? Something you've met this guy before? Somewhere you've met this guy before? He looked at Ben with this feeling they were not communicating again. He listened to Ben's single minded craziness with the uncomfortable feeling he might yet have to take a wrench to his partner. But just about the time he thought Ben might really blow, Ben gave this little wave of his hand and a shake of his head. All right, we're going in aboard our run. Forget it. Forget I said anything. What day is it? Asked from across the cabin. Cory? Cory?
The 21st, he told him. May 21st.
Ben raked his hand through his hair, rolled an anguished glance toward Bird. I want rid of him. God only knows what happened to his partner, or if there ever was a partner. Cory! Shut up! Ben screamed at Dekker. Just shut it up! Bird bit his lip and just kept it to himself. There were times you talked things over, and there were times you didn't, and Ben certainly didn't act in any way to discuss things at the moment.
Just get our confirm out of base,
Bird said, and ventured a pat on Ben's shoulder.
It's all right, Ben. Here?
Shut him up, Ben begged him. Just shut him up for a while. Dekker worked at the tape on his wrist, such as he could. His fingers were swollen, his ribs hurt, and he could not understand how he had gotten this way, or whether he had done something to deserve being beaten and tied up like this. He flatly could not remember, except the shower, the green ribbed shower, the watch. It was that day. Something was going to happen to Cory. If it was that day. But Bird said May, not March. January has 30 days. No, 31. February 28.
March. 30 days hath September, April, March, and November. April, May, and November. Shut up! March 12. 31 days. 21 less 12. No, start in January. That's 30. No, 31. And 28 or 29 if it's leap year. Is it leap year? It's not leap year. 28 and 12. No, start again. 30 days in January. It's May effing 21st, Dekker. Reckoning backward. 21 days in May. Couldn't happen. Couldn't be then. You reset my watch, damn you! You're trying to drive me crazy! Bird came drifting up to him, put his hand on his shoulder, caught the cold pack that was drifting there, and made him take it again. Bird said, quietly, on what previous subject he had no idea at all.
Time doesn't matter now, son. Just take it easy. We're about ready to catch our beam. You'll hear the sail deploy in a bit.
Refinery, too, he said. He remembered. He hoped he did. He hoped it wasn't all to happen again.
That's right.
Another pat on his arm. Bird might be crazy as Ben, but he thought there was something decent in Bird. He let Bird tilt his head over and take a look at his eye, the right one that was swelling and sore. Bird, do me a favor.
You're short on favors right now, son. What?
Call my partner.
We're doing all we can.
He didn't believe that. He especially didn't believe it when Bird pulled another cable loop out of his pocket and grabbed his other wrist. He resisted that. He tried to shove Bird off, but when he exerted himself he kept graying out and losing his breath. Let me go, he asked Bird, quietly, so Ben wouldn't hear. God, his ribs hurt. Let me loose.
Can't do that, son. Not today. Maybe not for a while. Ben says you've been bashing things.
The cable bit into his wrist, and one clip snapped. Ben's a liar! No, he hadn't meant to take that tack. He tried to amend it. A second clip snapped. Woven steel cable looped around a pipe or something. He tried not to panic. He tried to be perfectly reasonable. He's right. I was off my head a while, but I'm all right now. Tell him I'm sorry. I won't do that again.
I'll do it.
Bird squeezed his shoulder in a kindly way.
Nobody's gonna hurt you, son. Nobody means you any harm. We just got three people in a little ship, and you're just a little confused. Just try to keep it a little quiet. You'll be all right.
The oxygen felt short. He tried not to panic. He didn't want to tell them he was confused. Bird, he said before Bird could get away, there's a driver right where I came from, isn't there?
I wouldn't know that, son. I don't know for sure where you came from.
79 709 12. Bird nodded slowly.
All right. Yes, there is a driver near there.
He found his breath shorter and shorter. He said calmly, sanely, because he finally found one solid thing they both agreed on. All right, I want you to call it. Ask about my partner.
You sure you had a partner, son?
Reality kept getting away from him. Time and space and what had happened did. He fixed on Bird's gray stubbled face as the only reference he had. Just call the driver. Just ask them if they picked up my partner. That's all I ask.
Son, I honestly don't know what you might have been doing out there in a driver's assigned territory. You understand me?
He didn't. He shook his head.
How long have you been in the belt, son?
Couple years. He wasn't sure of that number any longer either. He was sure of nothing in regard to time. He thought again. Look at my watch. Got to know. Which direction to reckon?
Free runner?
Yeah,
You ever make any money in mining?
Ben asked those kinds of questions. Maybe.
Haven't ever done any skimming, have you?
His heart jumped. He shook his head emphatically, wanting Bird to believe him. No. He couldn't remember what conversation they were in, what they had just said, why Bird was asking him a thing like that. Bird said,
We're just damn close to that driver's fire path, understand? And if we got one accident, we sure don't need another. You read me?
things were dark a while. Bird gave him more of the soup, told him it was breakfast, and they were all right. He wanted to think so, but he didn't believe it any longer. He heard voices near him. He thought he remembered Bird asking him questions after that. He wasn't sure. He dreamed he answered, and that Bird let him loose a while to get to the toilet. But maybe that was the other time. From time to time he remembered the collision. His muscles jumped, and then he would realize that was long past, and he was alive. "What time is it?" he asked, and Bird caught him by the side of the jaw, made him focus, eye to eye.
Son, don't cross Ben again. Don't ask him the time. Don't ask me. Your friend's dead. She's dead. You understand me?
Bird's grip hurt. Bird was angry, and he didn't know why. "We got the confirm from base," Ben shouted up.
Yeah,
Bird called back, and patted Dekker's face.
got a draft coming from that vent. I'll get you a blanket. Tuck you in. We're about to catch the beam.
"Yeah," he said. He was confused again. He thought that Bird had said that would be some time yet. But he'd given up knowing where they were. He hung there, nowhere for a while, listening to Bird move around. He heard hydraulics working, heard that series of sounds that meant a sail deploying. He thought, so we're going in. He didn't really believe it. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't possible any longer. He couldn't come back from this. He just kept seeing the shower wall, the watch on his arm, perpetual loop, maybe because he was dead. Bird came back with an armful of blankets and jammed one between his head and the pipes, one at the small of his back.
Don't lose that.
Bird said, and took a bit of webbing and tied it around him and the blankets and the conduits, telling him he had to. It was for his safety. But he had stopped believing Bird. He thought about Soul Station, Mama coming home from work, Cory meeting him at Refinery 1 dock. "Hi there," she'd say. "I'm Cory." And a person who'd been a lot of letters and a lot of postage would be flesh and blood. If he could get to Dockside, if they brought him that far, she'd be there. If he could get to the 12th, he could get there again. He'd run out on his mother. Cory had run away from hers. His mother just let him go. Cory'd sent those letters that would always be stacked up in her mail file and waiting for her. He'd say, "Don't read them," but Cory would. Then she'd be down with a guilt attack for days, and go off by herself and spend hours at a rented comp writing some damn letter home. But he wouldn't. There was a lot he should have said when he'd had the chance. But it was Cory that didn't get any more chances, and that wasn't fair.
Stand by,
Bird yelled up at him.
Dekker, hear me? We're about to catch the beam. You all right up there?
He thought he answered. He was thinking, we're not going home. We're not ever going home again. There's going to be all these letters stacked up and waiting for Cory, and Cory won't ever read them. They'll just tell her mother, and she'll kill me. "Dekker, damn it, pay attention!" Ben's voice. "Answer! Yeah, he said. Dekker! He said it louder. The acceleration pressed his whoops. Let's try that again. The acceleration pressed his body against the blankets Bird had tucked between him and the pipes. The tape cut off circulation, and his fingers on that hand went numb. He began to be dizzy. The ship was going unstable. All of it came back, the explosion, and the ship tumbling, things flying loose. Cory! He yelled, or maybe that was then. He had no more idea. Someone told him to shut up, and he remembered that he had been rescued, but he had no idea where they were going or whether he was going to live. Finally, the pressure let up, and he hung there with his head throbbing and the feeling slowly returning to his hands. Pressure in his sinuses and behind his eyes built to a blinding headache when he tried to wonder what was happening or where he was. "What time is it?" he asked, but no one paid attention to him. He asked again, his voice cracking. "What time is it?" And Ben sailed up into his vision, grabbed him by the knee, grabbed him by his collar, and hit him across the face. "Shut up!" Ben yelled at him. He tried to use his knee and to turn his face to protect himself. Ben hit him again and again, until Bird came in from below and pulled Ben off him, yelling at Ben to stop it. Bird said, "Go back to sleep, Ben." And Ben yelled back, "How can I sleep with that? What time is it? What time is it? God, I'm gonna strangle him before the hour's out. I'm gonna fucking kill him."
Ben, Bird said quietly, taking Ben by the shoulder. Ben, easy. All right. Dekker, shut the hell up.
After that, it could have been next day, next week, a few hours. He wasn't sure. Ben came floating up to him, carefully took him by the collar, and gathered it tight, and calmly said, right in his face, "It's my watch now, hear me? We're all alone. Do you hear me, Dekker?" He nodded. He looked Ben in his close set eyes and said yes again, in case Ben hadn't understood him. "You want to know what time it is, Dekker?" He shook his head. He remembered that made Ben crazy. Ben wound his grip tighter, cutting off the blood to his head. "If you ask the time just one damn more time, I'm going to break your neck. You understand me, Dekker?" He nodded. The edges of his vision were going. Ben went on looking at him with murder in his eyes. He remembered, he was not sure, Ben taking pictures of him while he was unconscious. He thought, while Ben was shutting the blood away from his brain, this man is crazy. He's crazy, and I'm not that sure about Bird. "Hear me?" Ben said. He tried to say yes. Things got grayer. The ship was spinning. Ben let him go and went away. Then he gulped several lungfuls of air and started shivering. He wished Bird would wake up. He wished he knew where he was going now and whether Cory would still be waiting on the dock. They said refinery too, but that was like saying Mars or the moon. Places were different, and you didn't know where you were going even if you knew the name. The belt was like that. It was always like that. The rules changed. The company tried to screw you, but Cory always did the figuring. Cory had had college. Cory knew the numbers, and he didn't. He wished they had never taken him off that ship. He wished they had never found him. Or maybe he was dreaming. He had no idea now what was real. Dekker was off his head again, mumbling to himself, just under the noise of the pumps and the fans. Ben put a hand over that ear and tried to concentrate on the charts. feeding in info that was going to come in handy, because Big Mama didn't like to tell freerunners anything except what she had to. But with a spare and illicit storage, an enterprising and close-mouthed freerunner could vastly improve on Mama's charts, look at the sector she offered you, and tell which runs to take at any cost, and which to lease out if you had any choice. So you paid close attention while you were running. You listened to the sectors you were running through. Whoops. So you paid close attention while you were running. You listened to the sectors you were passing through blind, and you used your radar for what it was worth on all the sectors around you while you ran on belt management set. They swore. Safe course. Out and home. And you filed every piece of information you could get your hands on, listening for the older tags, making charts of the new, figuring where good rocks might cluster, assembling the whole moving mass of particles around you, because when Jupiter swept the belt on his 12-year course, slowing rocks down, speeding rocks up, and now and again changing certain orbits by a million or so K, or flinging certain rocks clear out of the belt, those all-important numbers did change. It was Sol's set of dice, but Jupiter did make the game interesting, and the free runners with the best numbers and the best records were the free runners that survived. Rocks hit each other now and again, driver tenders got careless, and now and again you might find an uncharted big bit of some old rock long since ground to bits and used, a chunk still running the old orbit path, give or take what rocks did to each other, and what Jupiter did, and what the occasional driver did when it went firing loads through the belt and into the well. Not much to hit out here, but now and again, generally thanks to some driver, they did, with shattering results. Sometimes, again, strange rocks just wandered through, old bits of comets, Oort cloud detritus, God only. Every rock had its path, and they all danced with Sol, but some were distant partners. And with the mass they were hauling now, you just hoped to hell Mama liked you and gave you solid numbers. "We're not real easy to stop," he had said to Bird, among other things.
"We could break," Bird had said.
And he, yeah, and we're carrying more mass than those cables are rated for."
"Won't happen," Bird said.
Thinking like that infuriated him. The thought of the rigging failing, the thought of, at best, a walk outside for repairs, at worst, the whole sail failing beyond repair. Trinidad taking, at this heading, the long fall into the well, made him crazy. He was already holding on to his temper with his fingernails, and Bird came out with, "It won't happen." He had fantasies of killing Dekker. Maybe Bird. But that was as crazy as Dekker was. He kept feeding in the information. He kept building and refining his portable record. He ignored Dekker as much as possible. Thing about Null G, you couldn't get your finger to stay in your ear. Not easily. He thought about his earplugs, over in the cabinet, but those worked too well for his peace of mind. He cast a glance at Bird, sleeping so quiet in his net, where they had strung it between the galley and the #1 workstation, Dekker being just too close to the spin cylinders. Dekker might have been crazy long before this, and Bird just might be soft enough to let the guy loose on his watch. That was all it took. Let Dekker near a wrench or, God forbid, get his hands on something sharp. All that blood in the ship, all those little red splatters on the suits. Did a cut on the forehead bleed like that? He had to have it agreed with Bird. They had to keep that guy confined. Somehow, some way. They couldn't sleep in nets for a month. They needed the spinners. And the idea of being blind and tucked in a spinner for 6 hours wondering what Dekker was doing on Bird's watch already upset his stomach. And, damn, he intended to keep every move logged, everything they did, everything this Dekker did, every spate of "what time is it?" Dekker would get the time, all right. Logged on and logged off. He'd get the expenses written down, too, exactly the way he knew how to do it in a record management would accept. Because Benjamin J. Pollard wasn't letting an old man's soft-headedness rob them of a break like this. Hell no.
And that is the end of chapter 2 and 3. And I'm going to have to call it for the day. I'd love to keep going. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. I'll do chapter 4 as well. Chapter 4 is short. One sec. Chapter 4. Refinery 2 was only slightly prettier than a rock, but it did come welcome. That K+ wide sooty ring that you only caught sight of on camera, and most to Bird's knowledge were eager to see it, and did turn the optics on, long before it was regulation that you had to get visual contact. There she hung, magnified in the long lens, spinning with a magnetic vengeance, with her masts stuck up like spindles, and her stationary mast surfaces bristling with knobby bits that were pushers and tenders, and shuttles from the shepherds and such. A few, hardly more than 10 or so at any one time, counting company rigs waiting crew change, were ships a lot like Trinidad. A whole lot like Trinidad, if you took Plan B on your outfitting and opted for green in the shower. A lot of the fitting inside Refinery 2 was a lot like Trinidad too, except, one supposed, if you got down to corporate residence levels. And there was about the same chance of free runners seeing that in person as getting a guided tour of the company bunker on Mimas. Sorry. Belters lived and Belters died, and Refinery 2 just rolled on. This big factory-hearted ring which was the only Whoops. This big factory-hearted ring, which was the only close to G1 place miners and tenders in R2 zone ever got back to. She swallowed down what the shepherds gathered in, she hiccuped methane, and she shat ingots and beams in sheet and foam steel. She used her own plastics and textiles, or she spat them at Mars. In this year, when Jupiter was as convenient to that world as Sol Station was. But nobody knew what went to Mimas. Some said what was down there repaired itself, and had more heart than any company exec. But that was rumor, and you didn't want to know. Some said it wasn't really the ops center it was reputed to be, in case of something major going wrong at the well. Some said it was the ultimate bunker for the execs, but you didn't say war in polite society either, and you didn't think too much about the big frame that sat out there aswarm with tenders and construction craft, a metal-spined monster that took rough shape here at the source of steel and plastics before it moved on to final rigging at Sol. You called what was going on out in the beyond a job action, or you called it a tax strike, or you called it damned stupid. But if you were smart, you didn't discuss it or that ship out there, and you didn't even think about it where Mama might hear. Amen.
Well, he sighed, she's still here. Kept the porch light on and the door open.
Ben didn't say, "What's a porch light?" You never could get a rise out of him like that.
Used to sit outside at night, Bird said, look up at the stars. You know what a shooting star is, Ben, lad?
No. Ben's tone said he was not at the moment interested to know. He was working approach, as close as his second-class license would let him. I'm about ready to hand off. You got it?
Yeah.
Dockmaster advises they copy on the request for meds. They're on their way.
Good on that.
He saw Ben furiously ticking away at the comp.
I got your hand off. Take it easy.
Take it easy. We got meds and customs swarming in here. We have to have the records straight.
Everything's in order. I checked it. You checked it. You sure they copy on that mass?
Yeah, I made him say again.
Ben was going through readout. No papers. Everything was data flow. BM wanted forms, and it was all data flow. Not at all like the old days where if you fouled up some damn company form, you got a chance to read it over slow and easy and say it right. Now, in this paperless society, the data link grabbed stuff and shoved new blanks at you so fast you didn't have time to be sure all your answers made sense.
You got all that stuff, Bird said, and welcome to it. Damn, I hate forms.
No worry.
Ben had a sure instinct for right answers. Ben swore it was a way of thinking. Ben input something and said,
Shit, shut him up.
he only then realized Dekker was talking, mumbling something in that low, constant drone of his.
I can't half hear him. He's all right.
I can hear him. I can damn well hear him. Where are we? Where are we? What time is it? I tell you.
Easy.
I've been easy. I'm gonna kill him before we make dock. I swear I am.
No, you're not. He's being quiet. Just let him alone.
You're losing your hearing. You can't hear that?
Not that loud.
The guy's crazy. Completely out of it. Only good thing in this business.
Ben, just drop it. End of run nerves, that's all. Just drop it, Ben, you mind?
There was a cold silence after that, except the click of buttons. And Dekker's voice, that was loud enough to hear now and again once you thought about it. Long silence, except for Ops and approach control talking back and forth with them, walking them through special procedures. I'm sorry, Ben said stiffly. Maybe because they were closer to civilization now, and sanity.
Where are we?
Dekker asked.
God!
Ben cried, and leaned far back in his seat. He yelled up at Dekker.
It's June 26th, and we're coming into Mars base. Don't you remember? The president of the company's going to be at the party.
Don't do that, Bird said. Just leave the poor guy alone.
He's alone, all right. He's damn well alone. Another week and we'd be as skits as he is.
Another call from base.
229 Tango Trinidad, this is Aztec's approach control. Tugs are on intercept. Stand by the secondary decel.
Approach control, this is 229 Tango. We copy that decel. We are go.
He shut down his mic, yelled,
Dekker, stand by decel, hear me?
Break his damn neck, Ben muttered.
There was no time for debate. They had a beam taking aim. Approach control advised them and fired. Pressure hit the sail, and bodies hit the restraints. They weren't in optimum attitude thanks to that ship coupled to them, and it was a hard shove. Dekker yelled aloud. Hurt, maybe. They had him patted in and tied down with everything soft they could find, but it was no substitute. It went on and on. Eventually, Dekker got quiet. Hope to hell that persistent nosebleed didn't break loose again.
229 Tango Trinidad, this is Aztec's approach control. Do a simple uncouple with that toe.
Approach control, this is 229 Tango. We copy that uncouple. Fix at 29240K to final at 1015 MPS closing. Omega.
Bird uncapped the button, pushed it. The clamps released with a shock through the frame, and 1er 84 Zebra went free. Still right up against them, 29,240 K to their rendezvous with the oncoming refinery, and they were going to ride with the tow a while, until the outlying tugs could move in and pick it off their tail. Ben muttered, I got everything customs can ask on that ship. Got all the charges figured, too. Just leave it, Ben. I want that ship, Bird. I want that ship. God, we got the proof. I got all the proof they need. Ben! Look, they do their official investigation, but this guy's incompetent. He was incompetent when we boarded. What's he gonna do? Ask him the time? The law's on our side. Ben was cheerful again. We got it, Bird. We got it. Let the guy alone, he said. Forget about that ship, damn it. I'm not forgetting it. Hell if I'll forget it. Sorry. We're filing on it. Or I am. You can take your pick, partner. There's such a thing as wanting things too much. You can't ever afford to want things that much. It's not healthy. Healthy hell. I'll take care of us. All you have to do is sit back and watch me go, partner. I know the law. There's things other than law, Ben. Just stow the charts, hear me? I'm not stowing the charts. We're gonna get searched, damn it. Just put the damn things in the hole or friggin' dump 'em. We can't get 'em off this time. Guys run 'em in all the time. Customs doesn't give a damn. Just say they're vid games. They don't even boot to check. Ben, damn it. I haven't spent all this work to give up those charts. They're gonna go over us with a microscope, Bird. 30 years nobody's found that hidey hole. Not customs, not the lease crews. Just drop them in. You think they're going to go at us plate by plate over a rescue?
229 Tango Trinidad, this is Aztecs Approach Control. Tugs are 20 minutes, 14 seconds. Mark.
Approach control, this is 229 Tango. We copy. 20 minutes, 14 seconds. No problem. Tow is clear. Proceeding on that instruction.
Ben said, You got an attitude this trip. I don't understand it, Bird. I swear I don't understand it.
You know Shakespeare, Ben?
Haven't met him. They were still speaking as they made dock. Barely. We got her, Ben said. Several significant breaths later, Ben said, I'm sorry, Bird.
Shakespeare's a writer,
Bird said. One of those, Ben said.
Yeah.
You got him on tape?
There's tape. Hard going, though.
Physics? Ben asked.
229 Tango Trinidad, this is Aztecs Dock Authority. Check your pressure. Will you need a line?
We copy 800 MB B dock. No line, we're 796.
Trinidad, we copy 796. Medical unit standing by on dockside. Standby life system sample.
Ah, shit, Ben groaned. They're going to stall us on a medical. They damn well better not find some bug aboard. I'll skin 'em.
Won't find any bug. Get our data up, will you?
They were nose to the docking mast. Trinidad shuddered and resounded as the cradle locked. She hissed a little of her air at the sampler. Aztecs said,
Welcome in, Trinidad. Good job. Standby results on that sample.
The dockside air went straight to the back of the throat and stung the sinuses, icy cold and smelling of volatiles. It tasted like ice water and oil, and it cut through the coats and gloves the way the clean and the cold finally cut through the stink Bird smelled in his sleep and imagined in the taste of his food. Time and again you got in from a run and the chronic sight of just one other human face, and when you looked at all the space around you and saw real live people and faces that weren't that face, you got the sudden disconnected notion you were watching it all on vid, drifting there with only a tether and a hand jet between you and a dizzy perspective down the mast. Worse than EVAs in the deep belt, a lot dizzier. Dog monkeys kited about at all angles, checking readouts, taking samples, talking to empty air. Bird's earpiece kept him informed about the meds inside the ship, the receipt of the manifest and customs forms at the appropriate offices. Morris Bird, the earpiece said, thin voice riding over the banging and hammering of sound in the core. This is Officer Wills, security. Understand you found a drifter. He hated being sneaked up on, hated the office sitters that would blindside a man and make him look around to see where they were, or whether they were there and not a phone call. He turned and saw three of them in Aztec security green, sailing his way down the hand line. Yes, sir, he said, before they got there. Details have already gone to BM. Any problems? Just a few questions, Wills said, before he got there. And that will do it. That is the end of chapter 4. And yeah, we will resume on chapter 5 in 2 weeks, provided I am still available, which I should be, even though things are kind of getting busy for me around there. But we'll see. Should be fine. At the end of the month, I'll try to get everything organized because I haven't done that in several weeks into their proper playlists. But next week, you can eagerly anticipate a couple seasonal short stories, seasonally relevant short stories, I should say. There we go. Alrighty, thanks for tuning in. I do this every week at noon on Fridays, noon Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. I do them live. They're all live. So live and uncut. Much to the chagrin of some individuals, I'm sure. I do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Monday stream where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. Coming up this next week, I believe I'll be doing Remote Control Dandy from the PS1, since that got a fan translation a while back, and I've been meaning to stream it anyway. Cool remote control giant robot stuff. I also have a Warframe Wednesdays stream where I do something Warframey for a couple hours on Wednesdays, all at noon Eastern Standard Time. Find a time zone converter and convert accordingly. Otherwise, it's all archived on the YouTube, which is probably where you're listening to this right now. Alrighty, thanks again for tuning in. Have a good one. Stay safe, stay sane, stay toasty, and stay good. Be decent to other people. Don't be like Ben Pollard. He's kind of a expletive deleted. It's what he is. He is a narcissistic borderline sociopath. Is what he is. He gets slightly better, but not in this book. Oh, that's right. I'll probably try and remember to bring this up next time as some background. Um, there aren't very many books that C.J. Cherryh has done in the Alliance or Merchanter universe. I think it's called the Merchanter universe now. Yeah, or Alliance Space universe, where there are very clear and like chronological sequels, um, like direct sequels. As far as I know, it's basically just Heavy Time and its sequel Hellburner, and the book Cytine and its sequel Regenesis. Um, Regenesis is like, I don't know, might as well be 5 minutes from the ending of Cytine. Hellburner is a little further removed from Heavy Time, but not by a lot. So this is the first book in a duology. Um, yeah, I'm gonna call it good at that. I'll talk more about that next week or the next time I do this, because it is kind of interesting, and I think a relevant study in how you can, as an author, demonstrate the fact that you do in fact have this broader universe and timeline planned out, but you don't, strictly speaking, have to do every book in direct chronological order, which C.J. Cherryh did not do. Like, this book is written after Citeen, apparently, although I thought it was written before, but it takes place well before Citeen. So, that sort of thing. Alrighty, thanks again for tuning in.